The rain came down like it had a grudge against Lagos that night. Emeka wiped his hands on a grease-stained rag and locked the iron gate of his workshop on the outskirts of Lekki. He was tired in the way that only poor men get tired, not just in the body, but in the bones, in the soul. 14 hours bent under car hoods, and he had made enough to buy rice and stew and maybe, pay half of what he owed the landlord. He pulled his jacket tighter and started walking toward the bus stop. That was when he heard it. Not a scream. Something worse. A sound like someone too weak to scream, a thin, broken cry swallowed by the rain. He stopped. The road was empty except for the streetlights throwing orange puddles in the flooding gutter. He told himself it was a cat. He told himself it was nothing. But his feet had already turned toward the sound before his mind could argue. He found the car in the ditch behind the overgrown bush fence that lined the road, a white Toyota Camry, nose first in the water, driver's side door buckled inward like it had been punched by something enormous. Emeka's chest tightened. He splashed into the ditch without thinking. She was inside. Young, maybe early 20s. Her head lolled against the cracked steering wheel and blood ran dark from a cut above her eyebrow, mixing with the rainwater pooling at her chin. Her breathing was shallow. Barely there. Then her hand moved. Fingers curled slowly, found the front of his jacket, and gripped with the last strength she had. Please. Her voice was barely a whisper. Please, don't let them find me. Emeka stared at her. Find her? Who? He opened his mouth to ask but she had already gone limp, her grip loosening, fingers slipping from his jacket. Her eyes were closed. He stood in the rain for one single second, just one, then he gathered her into his arms and ran. Before we continue, hit subscribe. Because this story will leave you speechless. If you want to know who Emeka Okafor was, look at his hands. Thick with old scars and fresh engine oil. Cracked at the knuckles. The hands of a man who had never been handed anything. He was 29, and he rented a half-room in Aja that came with a leaking ceiling, a neighbor who played music until 2 in the morning, and a monthly rent he was 3 months behind on. His mother, Mama Emeka, lived an hour away in Isael Eco and had been coughing since December, a deep, persistent cough the community health worker called stress-related, because the alternative diagnosis required tests she could not afford. Emeka sent her 2,000 naira every week. Sometimes 3,000. He ate less on those weeks. His workshop was not his. He paid daily use to the man who owned the space, a fat mechanic named Baba Nonso who talked too much and cheated on his wife with impressive commitment. Emeka dreamed of his own shop someday. A proper one, with a signboard and a pit and maybe a junior apprentice. He had been dreaming that dream for 6 years. Standing in that ditch with an unconscious girl bleeding in his arms, the dream was the last thing on his mind. He knew a clinic, a small private place run by a nurse called Mama Doyen about 10 minutes away. Not a real hospital. But it was open. He flagged the kiki and told the driver his sister had fallen, and the driver, bless him, drove fast without asking questions. Mama Doyen met them at the door and immediately her face went professional, no longer the cheerful woman who had once treated Emeka's infected finger and charged him too little. Bring her inside, she said. Put her on that bed. They cut her clothes at the shoulder to check for damage. Her phone was gone. Her bag was gone. Nothing on her gave a name. Head trauma, Mama Doyen muttered, shining a torch in the girl's eyes. Possible internal. We need to stabilize her. You said this is your. She's nobody to me, Emeka said. Then, I found her. She was in a car. In the ditch. Mama Doyen looked at him for a long time. This will cost money, Emeka. How much? She named a number. Emeka felt the ground shift slightly beneath him. It was more than what he had made that day. It was more than what he had saved in the last 2 weeks. He stood there doing the maths in his head, the maths of a man who already owes rent, whose mother needs medicine, who eats Gary some nights because it fills faster than EBA. He reached into his pocket and brought out everything he had. "Start," he said. "I'll find the rest." He sold his socket wrench set the next morning. It was his best set, the one he had bought second-hand 3 years ago from a man at Ladipo Market who claimed they were Belgian. They were not Belgian. But they worked. He sold them to Baba Nonso for half what they were worth because Baba Nonso knew he was desperate and because that is what desperation costs. The girl lay unconscious for 3 days. Emeka came every evening after work. He did not know why. He told himself he was making sure his money had not been wasted. But he sat in the plastic chair beside her bed and watched her breathe, and that was not the behavior of a man protecting an investment. That was something else. He could not have named it. Mama Doyen told him the girl had no internal bleeding, which was good. She told him the head injury was moderate, which was also good. She told him there was no ID, no next of kin, no way to trace her. Which was strange. A car like that. Clothes like that, even torn and muddy, the fabric was not cheap. Shoes that had cost more than Emeka's entire wardrobe. Who is she? Mama Doyen asked him one evening. I don't know, Emeka said honestly. On the 4th day, she woke up. He was there when it happened. He had come in after his shift, still smelling of engine oil, a small flask of Mama Doyen's pepper soup in his hand because Mama Doyen had insisted. The girl's eyes opened slowly, the way eyes do when they are not sure the world is safe enough to look at yet. She looked at him. She looked at the ceiling. She looked at the single window with its yellow curtain. And then her body went rigid. Easy, Emeka said. He did not move toward her. Easy. You're safe. You were in an accident. You're in a clinic. Her eyes swept the room again, fast and frightened. Where? Her voice was a ruin. She swallowed. Where is this? Aja. Lagos. Off the Lekki-Ape Expressway. Something in her face shifted. She exhaled, but the tension did not leave her shoulders. Who are you? My name is Emeka. I found you. In your car. In the ditch. He paused. You grabbed my jacket. She stared at him for a long moment, calculating something behind those eyes. Then she looked away, toward the wall. What's your name? He asked. I'm fine, she said, which was not an answer. I know you're fine. What's your name? She said nothing. She pulled the thin hospital blanket up to her chin and stared at the wall like it had information she needed. Emeka set the flask of pepper soup on the table beside her. Eat when you can, he said. Mama Doyen says you need to. She'll be in to check on you. He stood to leave. Don't tell anyone I'm here. Her voice stopped him at the door. Still quiet. Still controlled. But underneath it was a thing that sounded like genuine fear. Please. Don't tell anyone. He turned around slowly. Who would I tell? Anyone. She met his eyes for the first time properly. Please. He should have asked why. He should have pressed. Instead he nodded once and left, and he was not sure what he had just agreed to, only that something in her eyes made the question feel dangerous. He was almost right about that. It started small. Mama Doyen mentioned, 2 days after the girl woke, that a man had come asking about accident victims. Not a policeman, he had not shown any badge. Soft-spoken. Well-dressed. Did anyone come in recently? A young woman perhaps? Car accident. He had smiled and tipped his head and left when Mama Doyen said she could not share patient information. The same day, a black SUV idled on the street outside the clinic for over an hour before driving away. Emeka noticed it on his way in. He stood on the pavement and watched it go, then walked inside and said nothing to the girl. But he sat closer to the door that evening. She was getting better. She ate. She walked around the small room. She had a habit of touching her collarbone when she was thinking, fingers pressing lightly against her neck like checking for something that should be there, a necklace, maybe, long gone. She never gave her name. She called him Emeka because she had heard Mama Doyen use it. He called her auntie as a joke and she almost smiled. Almost. On the sixth night, Emeka came home from work and turned on his small television and the NTA news anchor was saying words that made him sit down without meaning to. The search continues for Miss Adiz Okonkwo, daughter of Chief Emmanuel Okonkwo, founder and CEO of Okonkwo Holdings, whose estimated net worth places him among the 5 wealthiest men in Nigeria. Miss Okonkwo, 22, was last seen leaving the family's Victoria Island residence 6 days ago. Her vehicle was later found abandoned near the Lekki-Ape Expressway. Police have opened an investigation. The screen showed her photograph. She was smiling in it, standing on what looked like the deck of a very large boat. She was wearing a yellow dress and the collarbone necklace he had never seen. Emeka sat very still. He looked at the face on his television for a long time. Then he turned it off. Then he sat in the dark for another 10 minutes before he stood up, put on his jacket, and went back to the clinic. She knew the moment she saw his face. He came in and closed the door and stood with his back against it and looked at her and said nothing, and the girl, Adiz, her name was Adiz, closed her eyes briefly. "You saw the news," she said. "Your father is Chief Okonkwo." She opened her eyes. "Yes. You are worth," he stopped. He was not sure he could say the number without his voice doing something embarrassing. "Your family is looking for you." "I know." She looked at the wall again. That habit of looking at walls like they were safer than people. "How much are they offering?" He blinked. "What?" "The reward." Her voice was flat. "For information. They always offer a reward." "How much is it?" I didn't, he hadn't checked. It hadn't occurred to him. That said something about Emeka Okafor, though he would not have been able to tell you what. "I don't know. I didn't look at the amount." She looked at him for a long time. Reading him, he realized. The way someone reads a door before deciding whether to open it. "The accident wasn't an accident," she said at last. Emeka did not move. Did not speak. 3 weeks ago I overheard a phone call. Her voice was very steady and very quiet, the steadiness of someone who has had several days to sort through their panic and decide what is on the other side of it. "It was in my father's study. I had come back for a book I forgot. The door wasn't fully closed." She paused. "It was my Uncle Chidi. On the call. He was talking to someone about shares. About my father's health. Papa has been ill, he has not told the public. About the succession plan." She touched her collarbone again, the absent necklace. "He said my father had recently changed his will. That now, if my father dies, the majority of Okonkwo Holdings goes not to Chidi's division of the family, but to me. Directly to me." She looked at Emeka. "Uncle Chidi did not know I was there. But 2 days later, I started getting headaches. Then I found that my housekeeper, a woman who has worked for us for 9 years, was sending messages to a number I didn't recognize. The room was very quiet. Outside, rain was starting again, lighter than before. I ran," Adiz said. "I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know who was safe. I was driving to a friend's house in Aja, someone my uncle doesn't know. And then there was a truck. It came from the junction. It didn't stop. It didn't even slow down." "The accident," Emeka said. "Yes." She looked at her hands. "The accident." Emeka sat down in the plastic chair. He looked at the floor. He was thinking about all the things this information meant, and all the ways this information changed the situation he was in, and the situation was considerably worse than he had thought 40 minutes ago when he was watching television. "You need to go to the police," he said. "My uncle has relationships with the police. Then, the EFCC. The DSS. Someone. With what evidence?" For the first time, something hot entered her voice. "I have no recording. No proof. Only what I heard. And I am missing for 6 days, and already the narrative they are building." She stopped. Steadied herself. "They will say I ran away. They will say I had a breakdown. My uncle will be the concerned family member. He is very good at being the concerned family member." Emeka rubbed his face with both hands. "So what is the plan?" "I don't know yet." She looked at him with something that was not quite helplessness, because it was too controlled for that. "I know that I need time. And I know that right now, the only person who knows where I am and hasn't sold that information is you." He heard what she was not saying. That she had done the maths too. That she had looked at him, his jacket, his hands, the flask of pepper soup, and reached a conclusion. "I'm not going to sell you," he said. "People always say that. I know. But I didn't spend my savings rescuing you to sell you." He held her eyes. "And I didn't eat Gary twice this week so that your uncle can have you killed." Something in her face changed. Not softened, she was too careful for softening. But something. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything. I didn't say that before. You were unconscious for 3 days. And then I was rude." "A little," he agreed. She almost smiled again. Still almost. But closer this time. They came for him on a Tuesday. He was under a Highlander, changing the oil, when Baba Nonso appeared at the edge of the pit with a look on his face that was trying to seem casual and failing. "Someone came," Baba Nonso said. "Man in a suit. Not police. He asked about you." Emeka slid out from under the car. "What kind of questions?" "Where you live. If you've had any visitors. If you mentioned finding anything, or anyone, recently." Baba Nonso lowered his voice. "He left a number. Said to tell you there's something good in it for both of us if you cooperate." Emeka looked at the phone number written in the margin of a receipt and felt something cold settle in his stomach. He pocketed the receipt without comment. That evening, a man he had never seen before was sitting on the wall outside Mama Doyen's clinic when Emeka arrived. The man looked at him. Emeka looked at the man. The man stood up. "You are Emeka the mechanic," the man said. "Not a question." "Who are you?" "A friend of the family." He was well dressed, thick neck, eyes that did not smile when his mouth did. "We are grateful for what you did. Finding her. Helping her. Very kind. The family would like to compensate you properly." He named a number. A real number, the kind that would clear Emeka's rent arrears and buy new tools and maybe, almost, approach the edge of what a deposit on a proper shop might cost. Emeka looked at the number in the air between them. "Where is she?" the man asked pleasantly. "I don't know what you're talking about." The pleasantness did not move. It just became a different kind of pleasantness. "The family is very concerned," the man said. "It would be unfortunate if complications arose for someone who was only trying to help. Businesses can lose their operating permits. Mothers can have their health assessments delayed." He tilted his head. "Small complications. Nothing that can't be avoided if we cooperate." Emeka stood very still. He had grown up poor in Lagos. He knew how power spoke to powerlessness. He had heard this voice before, in landlords, in area boys, in the men who collected unofficial tolls at junctions. He had always bent. Every single time, he had bent, because bending was what survival looked like. He thought about his mother's cough. He thought about his rent. He thought about his tools, already sold. He thought about a girl gripping his jacket in the dark and saying please. "I'll think about it," he said, which was a lie, and both men knew it. He went home and sat in the dark and called the only person he could think of, his cousin Femi, who worked in the records department of a law firm in Victoria Island and occasionally passed along information in exchange for Emeka not telling anyone about the time Femi drove a client's BMW into a ditch at 4 in the morning. "I need help," Emeka said. Adie's, it turned out, was extraordinary when she was not concussed, frightened, and bleeding. She had a mind that moved fast and a calm under pressure that Emeka suspected had been expensive to develop, the kind of calm you get not from easy living but from learning very young that a powerful family is not always a safe one. She had sent a voice message to herself before the crash. She had been smarter than she knew, alone in her car on the Lekki road, frightened, she had narrated everything. Her uncle's phone call. The housekeeper's messages. The date. The names. It was on her cloud account, synced automatically, surviving the crash and the destroyed phone. She had not remembered this until the 5th day, when the concussion fog cleared enough to let the details surface. It was not solid evidence. But it was something. And Femi's law firm, as it happened, had a senior partner who had been looking for 2 years for a way to investigate Chidi Okonkwo's business dealings without triggering a legal counterassault. The pieces took another week to move into position. They were the longest days of Emeka's life. He was followed twice. He noticed the same Okada trailing him on 2 different days, always at a careful distance, the rider never looking directly at him. He changed his route to the clinic. He stopped using his phone for calls he could not afford to be heard. He moved Adie's to a different room in the clinic, one at the back, that Mama Doyen kept empty. He did not sleep well. He ate badly. He went to work every morning and fixed other people's cars and thought about the distance between where he was and where he had been 2 weeks ago, before the rain, before the ditch, before a girl with no name grabbed his jacket. He had not known, then, what he was stepping into. He knew now. And he was still stepping. "You don't have to keep doing this," Adie's told him one evening. She was sitting up, dressed now, looking entirely unlike someone recovering from a moderate head injury. "Emeka. You have given enough. More than enough. If you told me to leave tonight, I would understand. Where would you go? I'd figure it out. Like you figured out the accident." She was quiet. "I didn't save you just to lose you now," he said. He said it simply, without drama. "The way you say a fact. So let's finish it." She looked at him for a long moment. Why? Not hostile. Genuinely asking. Trying to understand a man who had already lost so much over a stranger and was still here. "Why would you do this for someone you didn't know?" Emeka thought about it honestly. "Because you were dying in a ditch," he said. "And because the people who should have protected you were the ones who put you there." And, he stopped. Searched for the right words and did not entirely find them. "I have been bent over and pushed around my whole life. Every time. I have always bent. Just this once," he looked at his hands. "Just this once I want to see what happens if I don't." She was quiet for a long time. "My father," she said finally. "He is a hard man. Not unkind, but hard. He doesn't say much. But he built everything from nothing. Absolutely nothing." His father was a primary school teacher in Nui. She paused. "He will want to meet you. Let's survive your uncle first." "Yes," she said. "Let's do that." When it finally broke, it broke fast. The law firm's senior partner made 3 calls in one day, to a judge, to a senior official at the EFCC, and to a journalist at a Lagos newspaper who had been sitting on a related story for 8 months waiting for enough supporting evidence. The voice recording alone was not enough. But added to the financial documentation Adie's had remotely accessed from her father's cloud account, documents she had legitimate access to as a named trustee of the family estate, and the testimony of the housekeeper, who, when approached by the right people, turned out to be less loyal to Uncle Chidi than his money had suggested, it was enough. Chidi Okonkwo was brought in for questioning on a Thursday morning. Emeka heard about it the way most of Lagos heard about it, through his phone, through a breaking news notification, while he was in the pit under a Nissan Patrol doing a brake job. He read the headline twice. Then he put his phone back in his pocket and kept working, because the brake job needed to be finished and because it was easier to work than to feel what he was feeling. Adiz called him at 7 in the evening. "It's done," she said. "I saw." He was sitting on the wall outside his workshop, the last light going out of the sky. "Are you okay?" "I'm going to see my father tonight." A pause. "He has been looking for me for 2 weeks. She stopped. In the pause, Emeka heard something unfamiliar in her voice. Something undone. "He's not taking it well. Any of it." "Go see him," Emeka said. "That's what matters tonight." Another pause. Longer. "Emeka." "Yes. I'm going to need your address." He blinked. "Why?" "Because tomorrow morning," she said, "my father is going to send some things. And I would like to make sure they arrive at the right place." The envelope arrived the following afternoon. Emeka opened it at his workshop, still in his coveralls. There was a letter, brief, formal, from Chief Emmanuel Okonkwo, 2 paragraphs that said very little and meant everything. There was a check. He looked at the check for a long time without moving. It was enough for the shop. The real shop, the proper one, with a pit and a signboard and room for an apprentice. Enough for that, and for his mother's tests, and for the rent, and for new tools, and still enough left over that Emeka had no existing category in his life for what remained. But the thing that stayed with him, the thing he told his mother about when he went to Isael Eco that Sunday, sitting in her small living room while she held the letter and coughed less than she had been coughing, was not the check. It was the second item in the envelope. A photograph. 2 people standing on the same boat deck he had seen on the news. Chief Okonkwo, older in person than on television, a heaviness around his eyes that spoke of 2 weeks of fear, and Adiz, in the yellow dress, necklace back around her throat, the collarbone complete. And written on the back, in handwriting that was precise and a little formal and entirely her. "You didn't just save my life. You changed it. And whether you meant to or not, you changed mine too." Emeka held it for a long time. Then he folded it carefully and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, the same jacket she had gripped in the dark in the rain, and went to start his week. If this story moved you, do us a favor, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every story we tell depends on you. See you in the next one.